Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Mike Pitbull LaCombe. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, bro.
For sure, dude. So I'm looking forward to chopping up with you, Mike. The first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
My favorite bodybuilder of all time, I'd have to go with Jay Cutler for sure. Huge Jay Cutler fan. You know, obviously he's got awesome credential list, in the bodybuilding world, but he's a businessman. And, I like to fashion myself the same way. I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm a businessman as well. So I respect him kind of like on the playing field and off. And so definitely Jay. Flex Lewis is probably my all-time favorite. Still kind of like newer era. Definitely a businessman himself. Love what he's done with for bodybuilding. He's a huge advocate for the sport, I think, because he's got a positive mindset. He has the right to kind of sit on a cloud, but he's just down to earth kind of dude, and that makes the world a difference, especially in this industry when a lot of people feel a little too entitled. You know what I mean? So, and then of course I'm gonna have to throw the GOAT in there, Ronnie Coleman, because who doesn't throw on Ronnie Coleman when they want some like motivation to go train hard, right?
For sure, man. For sure. Love it. So the second question, just to kind of kickstart our conversation, Mike, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Oh shit. Like, I think I want to say I was like 12 when I got my first weight set. And I probably started lifting weights like right around that time, like 6th grade, 5th grade, something like that. I was like huge into like the Flex magazines, Muscle magazines, stuff like that. I remember making my mom get the grocery store and she thought it was like the weirdest thing. She's like, why do you want to look at that? It's so weird. That's gross, I just always remember being a huge fan of it. It caught my attention. I was like, dude, these look like my superhero, like action figure dudes. And so it's appealing to any little kid, I think, really, or for a lot of them. And then I begged her to give me a weight bench, and then it just kind of took off from there. Sports were always a part of my life. So, I just always had a reason to stay in shape. You know what I mean?
For sure. So let's kind of transition into your childhood then. You just brought up sports. Talk about where you grew up. Talk about the sports that you played, any siblings. Paint that picture a little bit for us, Mike, and then we'll move on from there.
Right on. So I grew up in Chicago, born and raised pretty much. We went did a couple different neighborhoods in Chicago. If you're familiar with the city, it's very large. I was on the south side for the most part. And then, we're inner city for a while, which, it could be rough. And definitely, I was definitely one of few white kids in the neighborhood, put it that way. I definitely was the minority of the group. So it was kind of like you always had to prove yourself. You always kind of had to like let everybody know you're gonna stand your ground type of thing. So after that, I had some pretty crazy shit happen to me. I had a couple of kids jump me for a bike, and wasn't giving it up. It was my bike I asked for a long time. Finally got it. Got jumped and didn't give the bike up. So these little assholes, they stabbed me in the back with like a little pocket knife. Everybody's had one of those like little Swiss Army pocket knives or whatever. So I'm riding home or whatever with this like knife in my back, like have no idea what's going on. I'm like 12 years old. I get home, tell my mom, she like basically faints. And within 3 weeks to a month, we were out of the city. We were in the suburbs. She's like, I'm getting you out of here. There's no way I'm losing, my kid to some stupid shit. So out we went, and then we moved to Romeoville, where I picked up sports right away. Obviously, that was going to be my niche because I was a lot different than a lot of those suburban kids. I felt like I was the outsider coming in, and they were kind of cliquey. So I kind of felt like I was back to square one, kind of showing everybody who I was, and trying to make friends. So.
Okay, so going to the bike incident where you got jumped, having something like traumatic like that happen at a young age, that doesn't usually you don't just shrug your shoulders and move on from that. What did that do for you in the years to come? Or did you pretty easily move on from that situation?
I think, I don't know. I think back now, I feel like it's so long ago that it's hard for me to remember how like malicious it was. You know what I mean? Like, do I remember the kid like stabbing me with a knife, or where they were just like, they definitely were trying to take my bike and they're definitely on top of me, but did he accidentally stick me with it when they were wrestling around trying to get my bike off? I don't know. But what I will tell you is it scared the shit out of me. I definitely was shook up from it, but it made me tougher. It made me grow up quicker. Realize, hey man, there's some crazy shit out there that could happen. These kids were older too. They were probably 16, 17 years old. I was like 12, something like that. And so I was definitely outnumbered. I was definitely outaged, and it definitely made me realize that you got to kind of be ready for anything, at a young age too.
For sure. Now, growing up, like you said, you were like one of the a few white kids in that neighborhood. Then you moved to the suburbs, and you were still, kind of had to like start over. Did some of those situations from childhood kind of put a chip on your shoulder? And is that something that you've kind of used to your advantage as you've grown up, gotten to bodybuilding, and now in business?
Yeah, I would have to say that, and that kind of goes for everybody. I feel like, in my opinion, your things that you go through in life kind of shape you. You know what I mean? And definitely, I've used it to my advantage. But I'm not gonna lie here and say I'm perfect. It's definitely bit me in the ass too. Had a lot of opportunity. I played baseball majority of my life. Started when I was like 3 years old, 4 years old, and just excelled really well at it. Went to college on scholarship, played a little minor league ball, semi-pro stuff that I probably could have continued, but was just kind of ready to like grow up, stop asking my grandparents for money, because you don't make shit making playing for them. And after that, it was just kind of like, all right, I transitioned into from this baseball player to, I needed a void to fill this void. So that's where bodybuilding picked up. And then that chip kind of relates well in such a lonely sport like bodybuilding. You know what I mean? It kind of fit me more in bodybuilding than it did baseball, because in baseball it could have been taken two ways. Hey, that kid's a leader, or hey, that kid's a cocky asshole. You know what I mean? And I got that from both ways. So
Talk about you played baseball. What other sports did you play in high school? And then why don't you talk about the opportunity to play college baseball? Because that's something I saw on your Instagram as I was preparing for our conversation. That's something that not everybody has, that opportunity to play a college sport. So what other sports did you play in high school? And then what was it like being able to play college baseball?
In high school, I played, all growing up, everything. I played football, basketball. I loved basketball. I was a huge basketball fan. My favorite athlete to this day is Michael Jordan. Huge, support for me when it came to a business aspect. I looked at him, hey, I want to be like him on the court, and I want to be like him off the court. So it was somebody I looked up to growing up. But pretty much I'd say like my sophomore year, you kind of got to like depict like, hey, I'm going to dump all my eggs in this basket because I'm really good at this sport. Unless you're like a Bo Jackson or something, you're like, I'll play both. Why not? Right. But so I dumped all my eggs in that baseball basket, probably my sophomore year. And then my sophomore year, I got moved to varsity. And then it just kind of like started excelling more and more and more, And then I went to junior college to play ball, obviously, because I wouldn't have went to school. I would have went to like trade school or something. And I went to school to play ball. I really thought I was going to get drafted. Thought I was going to get picked up in those 2 years. That's why I elected to go the 2-year route. So I could be able to sign my freshman or sophomore year. And at a 4-year university, you have to wait till your junior year. So that plan obviously did not happen. I did get some attention, but not enough, obviously, because I'm still not a pro baseball player, am I? So, and then after that, it was after college, I got an opportunity to play a little bit, and it just that excelling just kind of started to halt. And I noticed that, I started to pick up on it, and you realize like, hey, where's this going? I'm 23 at the time, and I'm like reaching in my pockets. I'm like, listen, dude, like you either got to make a living for yourself, or you got to just like stick this out. You got to start doing something. So after that, I came home and I started, deciding that I'm going to start going into the fitness industry, and then dabbled into bodybuilding and ended up getting bit by that bug, and the rest is history, man. So it just kind of worked well because it fused well with the industry. You know what I mean? I was in the fitness industry. I was a personal trainer, nutritionist, and then the bodybuilding just kind of lingered, ended up being pretty good at it. So
Now, what kind of pulled you into the fitness industry? Is it just kind of the combination of, growing up playing sports and being a college athlete and obviously having to work out, stay in good shape for that? Or was it something else that kind of pulled you in?
like I said before, I think I was just always a fan of working out. I loved it. And it was like, okay, well, what the fuck else do I like besides baseball? What am I good at? You know what I mean? And even through baseball, it was always like the coach would be like, yo, LaCombe, stop, get off the bench press. You're not a fucking bodybuilder, bro. It's like, beat it, go stretch, And it was always something that in my subconscious I loved. I just had a natural passion without any effort. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. Okay, before we kind of dive fully into bodybuilding, I want to ask you about the tattoos.
All right.
When did you start getting the tattoos? And what are tattoos for you? Because obviously I've got tattoos and stuff, and I think when you ask people that type of a question, some people get tattoos. Everyone's got a meaning. Some people get tattoos just because they love tattoos. It kind of looks cool. So when did you get your first one? And then what are the tattoos for you personally, Mike?
That's an awesome question. I love talking about my tattoos. It definitely invests a lot of time, a lot of money, as you know. So you like talking about it. It's something I don't think I ever get sick of answering. But the first tattoo I got, I was actually 16 years old. I begged my mom for this tattoo. I had to have it. I actually designed it myself. It's a baseball with an American flag and an Italian flag hovering around it with, the all famous barbed wire. So I had to have this tattoo. So, she made a deal with me. Hey, if you make honor roll or, do whatever, so-and-so, I'll get you the tattoo. I think it was like something along the lines, don't get into any fights and make the honor roll. So made the honor roll. I was always good at the grades in school. I was always good. It didn't come super easy, but I knew if I applied myself, there'd be some reward. So then I would do it. And then, after that first tattoo came, it was like, okay, well, I just want this one. And then that's it, and then she saw that it was like the big tribal I got down my arm, that now this whole arm is covered. And she's like, just after that, I think is when she just stopped even acknowledging them, like when I got my throat tattooed, like, I don't think my mom still has said a fucking word about it. It's like she doesn't even see it. It's actually comical, but yeah. So tattoos, if you have them, that they're addicting. They're painful. I'm not gonna sit here and say they're not, because they hurt. You're crazy if you don't think they hurt. But there is definitely a story behind every single one of my tattoos. Obviously, the first one was baseball. My whole heart, you know what I mean? Growing up, it was my structure. Probably saved my life in many ways. From going down the wrong road many different times. So, after that, it was just kind of little things that happen and trickle along through life that it was like, boom, hey, this makes sense. Like my dog on my arm, it's a portrait of him. He's very much a part of me. It's like my son. Anyone who knows me knows what my dogs mean to me. So, and then as things happen in life, it's kind of like your story that you're writing down in a journal, but it's like on your skin, you know what I mean? And I think people that get tattoos owe it because it's cool. I mean, that's cool. You know what I mean? That's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, but mine happen to have a meaning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I love it. I love people, like two of my favorite things are tattoos and muscle, man. So,
Yeah, right.
can combine them and you got some good stuff. So, all right. So you finish up with baseball, you kind of start getting into the fitness industry, doing the personal training. Then you said bodybuilding is just kind of like a natural progression. So, did you have somebody come up to you and approach you about bodybuilding, or was it something that you were just like checking out the magazine since you were young? You're like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. How did that look?
You know, I definitely had people like, you know, I was in the gym and stuff, and you know, there's people that were more into it. You know, I didn't really know distinctions of it. You know, I didn't know like the whole foundation of it. Like there was an actual league and, you know, this, that, and the other. I just thought the pictures are cool. I didn't even really understand how the hell they looked like that, but I just thought it was cool, you know? Then I started to learn about everything else, like the NPC, the IFBB, you know, and then I started to realize like, oh damn, this is like a whole organization. This is like a real thing. Holy shit, this is like a sport and it's legit. Dude, if I could be good at this, maybe I'd go pro in this and kind of like make up for my mishap in baseball, right? So then when I started to realize how like legitimate the sport of bodybuilding was, it caught my attention a lot more. I took it a lot more serious, I think. You know what I'm saying? So then, you know, after that, people's just like little comments saying, hey, you should bodybuild, bro. You'd be good. You should do a show. I'm like, one day I think it was just like, all right, fuck it. Let's try this. Let's see what it, you know, what it is. And I was like, hey, I know every time I put my mind to something, I'm good at it. You know what I'm saying? So just gave it a try and, you know, got bit.
So talk about your first competition. Did you hire a coach? Did you prep yourself? What were the results? And then what was that experience? Did you really, really enjoy it? Or did it take you a little bit of time to kind of warm up to like competing again?
Yeah. So at first it was definitely, I look back now and I fucking chuckle. I'm like, there's so many funny things that, you know, wrong things I did or whatever. But no, I didn't hire a coach. I actually didn't have a coach until I was pretty deep into it, probably till like 2015, I want to say. But coach, pretty much coached myself. I had people that giving me input, you know, or whatever. But obviously, like I said, I look back now and there was so much shit that I did wrong. But was obviously enough to get in shape. I did win the show. You know, I did well. It was a natural federation. So, and then after the natural federation, then obviously I looked into the NPC, decided to do, you know, get into that aspect of it with gear, stuff like that. And was like, holy shit, this is crazy. You mix in taking, because a lot of people, when they first take gear, they don't diet. They're eating pizza and beer and taking tests and they blow up. You know, you still get big, but it's not the same look. So right when I started taking gear, I started dieting. So it was like I got the first real idea of what my body could attain. You know what I mean? So then after that, NPC show came about a year and a half, 2 years later, something like that. And then I started competing pretty consistently year after year, but it wasn't like I ever took it that serious. You know, it was more like, all right, I'll start training for this bodybuilding show. You know, I didn't do an off season or anything like that. Probably for, I'd say, half of the 10 years that it took me to take or attain my pro card. You know, that last 5 years in 2000, from 2014 to 2015 is when I really realized like, hey, dude, you're pretty fucking good at this. Like, you need to either take this shit serious or stop making so many sacrifices for it, because, you know, one or the other, bro. You know, and that's when I started like, you know, full speed ahead, you know. And so from then on, you know, here we are and at ground zero again in the pro ranks, you know, I'm small fish again.
For sure, for sure. Now, I want to, since you brought up gear, I don't really like to talk about it a whole lot on my podcast because there's a lot of podcasts that talk about it, and I just don't really have a desire to talk about it a whole lot. But you brought it up, and I know just with the traction that this podcast is gaining, there's a lot of young listeners, and I think if it comes up in conversation, it's important to address it. So we're going to do that if you don't mind, Mike. But to the young listeners, okay, so how many shows did you do before you started taking gear?
I did one show.
Okay. So speaking to the listeners that are at that point where they're trying to decide if they're going to step into taking gear or just continue to go natural, what words of wisdom, what words of advice from your own personal experiences, from maybe some other things that you've heard from other people or you know, seen other people go through, what words of wisdom, what words of advice would you speak to that listener that's thinking about taking gear, that really wants to pursue bodybuilding? What do you got for us?
I would definitely strongly suggest to stick with natural bodybuilding till you're maxed out. So you feel like you've done your fullest potential, you've reached fullest potential. And if that's something, an avenue you want to go down, I would strongly suggest getting involved with the proper clinic, the proper guidance. Do not do it by yourself, because no matter how much information you think you know, you do not know enough. There's many mistakes that I've made of myself, that I've heard other people making. Obviously, it's not hard to find out mishaps of using that stuff. What I will say, though, is if you're going to do it, make sure you're educated and you know what you're doing. Also, make sure that you want to take this seriously. Don't do it if you're going to do it as a hobby. Take it serious if you're going to pursue natural or national bodybuilding. That's something that's going to be per se, it's going to be a taboo type of thing. That's something that's going to be involved in that. And I think the best thing is not to be naive to it. You have to have education on it, and you have to understand that is part of the sport at the higher ranks in those federations. So a lot of kids think that they're going to attain that these looks without it. Not saying that they can't attain a very good look, but you can't be naive to it. And a lot of people are trying to lie to these kids. And that's something I won't do. I'll definitely educate somebody on it and tell them the right path to take or the right guidance. But I would strongly suggest on making sure that you're 100% educated and you're 100% invested in it.
Excellent. Now, one follow-up question, and then we're going to move on from this topic. But you said stick to natural bodybuilding until you max out your physique. Okay. How does somebody go about knowing that they've maxed out their physique as a natural bodybuilder, and then they can step into taking gear if that's what they choose? How would somebody go about knowing that?
Well, what I would say was definitely you're not going to find out like I did in one show. So that was my mistake. Like I said, I've made mistakes. That's something I definitely, if I could turn the clocks back, I would have taken natural bodybuilding much further. I would have just pushed myself. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay in those natural federations, because a lot of kids that do understand this get trickled down by the fact that, well, no one knows about natural bodybuilding. Nobody cares about it. Nobody follows it, blah, 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 blah. They want to do NPC shows. Push yourself as far as you can in those NPC shows, see where you amount to. If you're getting top call outs, top 2, top 3, and your body keeps progressing, then keep going. You know what I mean? Keep going. And then when you start, don't start with a ton of it where everybody else makes that mistake, because once you go that high, it's very hard to come back down to a normal level. So like I said, make sure if you're using the right people and the right education, they're not going to allow that to happen. And then you're going to avoid a lot of mistakes that you're going to make along the way.
Awesome, Mike. I appreciate you touching on that, man. Now, you said the first 5 years of competing, you didn't really do an off season.
No, not serious.
What's that?
I said, no, not serious.
Right. So when you started doing the off season training and kind of prepping year round, was that did that kind of parlay with you hiring a coach? Was that initial first coach that you hired somebody that kind of helped you realize, if you're going to do this, you need to have those off seasons? Or was that kind of a discovery on your own?
I would definitely say I hired Fakhri Moorback. I'm sure you know him. A lot of people do. He's very known in the industry, renowned coach then and now. So when I hooked up with him, we did a lot of good work together. He really made me realize my potential and see my body was, I could attain. But he definitely showed me what the hell it meant to eat in an off season. I never ate that much in my life. But between the end of 2014 into the end of 2015, before we competed, I had done an off season. I want to say it was about 8 or 9 months, maybe about 10 months, I'd say, closer to. And I put on 19 pounds or 18 pounds of stage weight, which obviously that's just not a scale number, that's tissue muscle. So I went from being, a middleweight at 176.25 to, I think I weighed in at 194. I want to say that show. So that was my first time as a light heavy at nationals, where I placed 5th. So after that, it was like, whoa, I can actually do this. You know what I mean? For sure.
So let's talk about there's from just, again, your Instagram and stuff. There's a 10-year period from kind of when you first started competing to when you earned your IFBB pro card at 2020 nationals. So talk about just the necessity of having the mindset of, hey, this is a marathon. This isn't necessarily a sprint, and how important it is just to really be focused on, hey, like, you know what, this is going to take a while for most people. And you need to kind of have that mind in that place of being open to progressing within bodybuilding and not thinking that it's going to happen overnight. So just talk about that. Talk about your experience of competing for 10 years before you got your pro card.
Yeah, I actually, it's something all my clients have heard me say this, but I always say, you know, trust the process and enjoy the journey. Because if you're not, it's not going to mean anything to you when you get there. You know, a lot of these people, and I'm sure it's great, they attain their pro cards after doing 1 or 2 shows, you know what I mean? But a lot of those people, you don't see them doing anything as pros because their passion was never there. So then when they really have to diet, they really got to dig deep and learn some, you know, hardship. They can't do it because there's no passion for it. So through those 10 years, my passion for bodybuilding has increased. And that's how you know that it's a legitimate thing for you to be spending so much of your time. You know, we have a small amount of time here on earth. So you got to make sure you're doing something you love, right? So that's kind of how I distinguish whether or not I should or shouldn't be doing it.
So during those 10 years of competing, what's a couple of things that you learned that you can kind of share with the listeners in terms of just maybe it's prep, maybe it's off season, maybe it's training? What are a few things that you would like to share in that 10-year experience, that 10-year journey?
Well, number one, I would say is consistency. Don't stop training. Don't stop eating. If you think you're going to take a 2-year hiatus and then come back and be at the same place at, you know, as all the other people were in your call out or whatever, it's not going to happen. You know, and also be ready for hardship. You know, bodybuilding is a motherfucker sometimes, straight up. You know, it's going to knock you down, and so is life. 5 months before nationals, you know, I don't talk about it too much. I've posted it maybe once or twice. I almost lost my life. I was in an ATV accident in Arizona, and I flipped it and ended up being some bad brakes that we were actually going to return the quad, the unit to get a new one. And the brakes completely gave out on the thing. And I've been riding quad since I was like 4 years old. And this thing completely shit out on me. But, you know, I'm going down a hill, or a mountain, I should say, not a hill, where it's, you know, it's steep. And if I keep going straight, I'm going straight off this mountain. So I elected to jump off the quad, obviously. And when I did so, I fell some which way, which I don't really remember. I don't know if I really blacked out or what, but ended up rupturing an artery in my stomach, in my lower abdomen, and ended up having to be rushed to the emergency room and have surgery that day. Within 30 minutes of being in the hospital, they rushed me into surgery. And they weren't sure if it was going to be one surgery, if it was going to be multiple surgeries, because there was so much blood in my stomach. They couldn't exactly see if there was multiple, you know, adhesions or whatever. So they stuck a coil in me, which basically rebound my artery back together. And, you know, that was a pretty rough recovery. And that was exactly 5 months, almost to the day of when I got my pro card at nationals. So when I say be ready to be knocked down when you're bodybuilding, that's pretty much what I mean. You know, I seen some dark days after that accident. I was very, very depressed. I was very upset, kind of like a why is this happening to me thing. I was finally getting back on top of my game, starting to train. And I was actually in prep for North Americans at the time. And prior to this, I took a break from bodybuilding because I was trying to start a family, and that kind of went south. We went our different ways, ended up getting divorced earlier than that year. Then the accident happened. So I was kind of like looking at my life through a lens, or the hospital bed, if you will, and like, what the fuck? You know, what is going on? You know what I mean? And so that kind of just really helped me focus and realize, like, hey, you're at the bottom here. So the only way to go up is, or the only way to go is up. You know what I mean? And so I think I would say definitely be ready to be knocked down in life when you're bodybuilding, and you're going to know whether or not your passion is there for it, because it's going to test you time and time again.
So how did you mentally, because it all starts with our mind, right? That's life, that's bodybuilding. How did you mentally, Mike, pull yourself up from that situation? Because you talked about the divorce and then the accident happens, and then, you know, you're just kind of getting in the flow of bodybuilding. How did you mentally pull yourself up and move forward? And then 5 months later, you earned your IFBB pro card. What did that practically look like for you, if you don't mind sharing?
Shit, man, like a whole damn movie. Straight up, man. I look back on it now and I'm just like, shit. Anybody got an editor license? Like, we should write this up. This might be a good story. I think we do okay at the box office. But no, in all seriousness, I was at the bottom, man. I've never been that low. I'll tell you that straight up. I know we don't know each other well, but that was the darkest of my days right there. And I was kind of like in between a rock and a hard place. And it was either whether, hey man, you're going to lay down, or you're going to do what you preach to everybody else. And you're going to have that Pitbull mentality. You're going to get your ass up and you're going to do something that nobody expects you to fucking do. What can you do to make yourself feel better? Let's go shock the world. And you know what I mean? That's basically what I did. And I just was relentless. And I just, regardless of how many people told me I was fucking crazy, I just was relentless on installing that fact into reality.
Did you have was there like a quote? Was there a mantra? Was there a place that you would take your mind in terms of just like focusing on something to progress forward, or not?
Yeah. I live by it. It's part of my business trend. It's Pitbull mentality. You know what I mean? You keep coming like a Pitbull, you're relentless, you're tenacious, and you're not going to stop until you achieve whatever that goal may be. For a Pitbull, it might be ripping the neck out of an intruder, but for me, it was attaining that pro card and defying everything everybody else told me I wasn't going to do. And basically I was there to bark back at the universe and be like, hey, I'm here. You know what I mean? And I appreciate the opportunity that you allowed me to be here, and I'm going to capitalize on it. And it really just, it set my life off, because it has completely changed my mindset. It's completely changed my outlook in life. You know what I mean? So I'm very, very thankful for the last year.
Love it, man. So why don't you talk about that, experience of earning your IFBB pro card at the 2020 Nationals? Not only were you going through your own personal stuff, we were in the midst of a pandemic at the time. There was a lot of uncertainty. So talk about, man, when you knew you got that pro card, what were the feelings? What were the emotions? What was that day like, if you don't mind sharing, Mike?
That day was very, very surreal. I get goosebumps and tear up thinking about it all the time, because it was so much more than just a pro card. You know what I mean? Like, obviously that was something I chased. That was a materialistic thing that I chased for so long. But it was more so you did it. You know what I mean? And then it was kind of like, I told you so. I told you I was going to do this shit. And I hope now you see what you're capable of. Not see what I'm capable of, but see what you all are capable of if you fucking put your mind to it. You know what I mean? I'm not special. I wasn't born with the best genetics in the world. You know what I mean? But what I was born with is a relentless, tenacious attitude to be the best I can be. So everybody has that ability. You know what I mean? You just got to dig down, figure out what pulls that out of you, and fucking keep it around you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So, did you go out? Did you have a cheat meal after you won your pro card? If so, what was it? What was that next week or two like for you after you got that pro card?
Yeah, actually I did go out. We went out to eat. I had some friends in town that came out to Orlando. I don't know if you know Kevin Jordan. He's also a pro bodybuilder. Very, very good friend of mine, like a brother to me. That meant the absolute world to have him there. See me get my pro card. He was obviously a huge a huge, support system for me going through everything I was going through. And then, Kevin was a huge reason why I wanted to bodybuild. We were friends for 10 years before I was really getting into bodybuilding. I was looking at him and I was like, holy shit, this guy's a monster. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just brought the more of like, added the more surreal, vibe to the whole story, you know what I mean? And then, I had my girlfriend with me, which was a huge part of me after, my rebuild, if you will, my comeback, if you will. And she was there to celebrate. I had some other buddies that were there competing. We went out to Buca di Beppo because I love pasta. I'm a big fat wop, and that's what I enjoy eating. And so I ate a pound of pasta, I think a pound of ice cream, and then I went to bed with a really sore stomach and a huge grin on my face.
For sure. Yeah. So did you prep yourself for this competition, or who was your coach for your 2020 nationals?
I actually worked with Andrew Vu. He's been my coach since we hooked up in 2018, I believe. Was our first year together. So yeah, he coached me for that.
How's been working with Andrew? I know he coaches a lot of top athletes. What has he personally kind of brought to the table for you in terms of taking your bodybuilding to the next level, Mike?
Andrew and me have a really good dynamic. I'm a coach myself. So I needed somebody that would respect me and understand that, if I have something to say or bring something to the table, you're going to not just shut me out because I'm your client, So that mutual respect, I think, is very important, and shapes the dynamic that we have, and obviously helps, gel it. But also what I need out of a coach and what Andrew provides is the ability to tell me hey, shut the fuck up. You're 3 weeks out. You don't know what you're talking about. Do what I said. So then it's like, okay, if he's not acknowledging what I say, then I know I'm out of it. This is why I hire him. I respect him enough to be like, I'm listening, And so I think with a coach, dude, like, it's just dynamic is everything. If you don't respect that person, if you don't trust that person, you don't always have to see eye to eye. You're going to disagree. You're going to piss each other off. It's like that with every relationship that means anything in your whole life. You know what I mean? Your wife, your mother, your kids, your whatever, you know what I mean? So with Andrew, I can always count on him to tell me exactly how it is. And in a world of where everybody is, not that they want to be on your jack or stroke your ego, but everybody wants to be your fan. Everybody wants you to be happy and pump you up, and because they see how hard you work or whatever. Not everyone's going to tell you, hey, bro, you still look like shit. Hey, I know you hit 6 meals, but you got to hit 7 because you're not going to be the best bodybuilder you can be. It's like, it's hard to swallow, but I need that. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? So that's what Andrew brings to the table.
Awesome, man. Now, something that I saw on one of your posts, you talked about support system and how valuable and important that is. And you brought up Kevin Jordan. I'm sure Andrew is a huge part of that. But in terms of this comeback and in terms of being in 2021 now and moving forward with everything you've got going on with business and bodybuilding, how important is a support system for you? I want you to speak on that. And then how important is it just in terms of bodybuilding and business in life in general to have that support system for those of us that are listening to your story, Mike?
It's absolutely everything. It is huge to have a huge support system because I'll tell you why. Like I said, there's going to be times where life is going to knock you down. Business is going to knock you down. Friendships are going to knock you down. Competition is most definitely going to knock you down. Okay. And if we're talking bodybuilding, that's the most subjective, demoralizing, discouraging sport there is. Okay. So there's very little upside in bodybuilding. Like, listen, you diet all that time, and if you don't make the top 3, you suck. You know what I mean? Or, you didn't succeed, or whatever the case may be. So this is, could be a very lonely sport. So if you don't have people in your corner that are going to understand and not necessarily love the sport or understand the sport, but love you enough to understand, hey, I got to support him because he loves it. It means everything to him. So a support system isn't always somebody that does it. You know what I mean? Or or understands it. It just has to be somebody that really just wants to see you win, wants to see you, and I don't mean in competition, just see you win in life, win in opportunity, you know what I mean? And, in result. So I think it is most definitely important to start picking your circle and realizing who you can rely on at the darkest times, not when things are good, because those people, you never know. They could be fair weather. As soon as there's any bit of hardship, that ship could sail. So the support system is absolutely everything in every aspect of life, business, bodybuilding, everything.
Excellent, man. I want to ask you kind of one more thing here about your future in bodybuilding, and then I would love to touch on some business stuff because it seems like that's something you're very passionate about too. So going forward in terms of being an IFBB pro, what does the outlook look like for you, Mike? Do you have any plans to compete next year? What does that plan look like, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I am actually extremely anxious to start prep. This bodybuilding is tough. It's easy for me to get shredded. I love being in shape, but the eating in the off season, the redundancy of it, it's tough, and it becomes stale very quickly. So I'm very eager to start prep. If all goes well, I'm going to be finishing up my off season per se, my off season push. We'll do a slight, rest phase, clean out phase or whatever, and then maybe start prep like mid to late January, and potentially do the Indie Pro. We'll see. I would really, really like to be ready for that show. It's not too far from where I live. I do know some of my buddies that will probably be competing in it as well. And like I said, I'm super eager to see where I kind of stand. You know what I mean? And I think maybe after that, we'll if Chicago Pro is back in Chicago, obviously, I hope the God it is, then we'll be definitely doing Chicago Pro, because if they have it at the same venue, that's probably like 15 minutes from my house.
Cool, man. And you'll be in the 212?
Yes.
Did you see Sean Clarita won the Open yesterday, dude, out there in Nevada?
I did, dude. Like, amazing. Like, I mean, he's an amazing bodybuilder as it is, but to see him next to those guys and just see like his structure match up, perfectly fine with it, despite the height, it's just crazy. The amount of muscle that dude has on his body is just insane. And the shape of it, he's so bubbly. It's crazy. So bubbly, but yet so hard. It's just a very, very motivating story for sure.
Yeah, man. And he posted on his Instagram that he weighed, I think, 174
Yeah,
pounds.
174.6 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then fourth place is actually a gentleman that I just had on my podcast. I think it was last week, Toni. He got 10th at the 212 Olympia. He got fourth place. So, I mean, man, like if you're a 212 guy, whether you have aspirations to compete in the Open or not, like, man, like I think it just legitimizes, that 212 division that much more, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I said to my buddy. As I was saying to Kevin too, I was just like, dude, it gives like some preference to the 212 division, because it's like, hey, structurally we can hang with you. You know what I mean? Like, some, obviously not all, but definitely is going to maybe get a little bit more acknowledgement for the division, which I think is awesome, because it ain't like we ain't working any less or something. I promise that.
For sure, man. For sure. Cool. So I want to touch on a little bit of business stuff. You have Inspire brand, which I think you have a shirt on right there. You're the CEO of that. You have your own, training, company. How did you get so interested? Because I mean, there's a lot of people out there. They just work the typical 9 to 5 and they do the bodybuilding and they're good with that. But how did you kind of get into the entrepreneurial spirit or space? How did you have that interest, Mike? Or you feel like it's just something that's always been there for you?
Well, what I will say is what's always been there for me. What is the little tick that started everything, I think, is I've always had a problem being told what to do. I got a problem with authority a little bit. I don't know what my problem is. Just, I'm going to blame it on the way I'm wired up. I don't know. It's an internal issue. I don't know. So that, I think, was the forefront of why I wanted to work for myself. And then obviously life happens, and it just kind of shaped into the perfect opportunity to work for myself. I was working for commercial gyms out of college. Right out of the bat, I had a commercial gym job as a PT manager, was making good money. But what I didn't like right off the bat is my vulnerability was always in the hands of the employer. And what happened 11 months after I got that job, I went from making $60,000 or whatever it was out of college, which then was pretty good money, to I lost my job because the fucking business went out of business or whatever. The place went out of business. So it was like, all right, well, there's strike one. And then, I went from there to Export Fitness, and, I'm working there, I'm training, I'm working my ranks up, and I'm coming from a PT manager position to go there to be a PT manager position. But I realized after some time that it's like a workhorse load, whatever. And I decided to start training. When I start training, they tell me you're capped out. You can't make normal money. I'm like, I don't fucking like this. People tell me what to do again. I don't like it. So went to another job, started doing the PT manager position, was making the best money I've ever made at that time. Ended up having a crazy, another movie flick that from my life that we could have made some money off of probably, but ended up in a legal battle with this company because of what they were trying to do to me, legally discharge me. And I had like all the proof in the world, ended up winning the case and everything. But at that point was like, listen, nobody's going to have my nuts in their hands anymore. So I'm going to work for myself now. So basically what I did is I just got my group or my foundation of clients that stuck with me after all that time in the industry. And, I was doing house calls, I was going to their apartment complexes in the city, high-rise gyms, driving around like a freaking chicken with his head cut off, dude. I was so stressed out at that time in my life because I'm chasing the dollar, chasing the bag. And it's like, dude, there's traffic everywhere. I'm getting parking tickets left and right. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? That's terrible. I must almost killed about 5 parking meter guys. And I'm like, poor them, they're only doing their job. But I'm like, this is like the 10th one this week. What the fuck? So, I think that's where it came from, is just not wanting to have my life be on somebody else's terms. You know what I mean? That's my favorite thing to say. I live life on my terms. You know what I mean? That's rich to me, is being able to live life on your terms and do okay. You know what I mean?
I do, man. I have done the jobs where, I've got a bachelor's degree in exercise science, but most of my time after college was spent working for other people, not even in the fitness industry, just working to pay the bills. Now I own my own gym and making the best money I ever had. Even the podcast, I don't make any money from this. This is a side passion project, but right. I'm living the life, first of all, that I believe God wants me to live, but it ties into the life that I want to live. And there's that freedom, man. And there's nothing like making your own schedule, making your own day. And like you said, living life on your terms. Like it's freeing, right? It's absolutely freeing. Cause I've always told people, I will never be a slave to my job, because I would work what I needed to work. I would do what I need to do, but it's I'm never going to be a slave to a job. And there's no worse feeling to me in the world when your money is in somebody else's hands. You don't get the paycheck until the quote unquote boss signs their name to it. That's being enslaved to me personally. That's slavery in a sense, right?
Right.
So I hear you, man, 100%. Now let's talk about Inspire brand. What is that? And why don't you just explain a little bit about how you got into that business or started that business?
Right. All right. So Inspire brand is a CBD business. I also have clothing, as you can see. I pride myself on quality. Both my clothing, for my clothing, if you have some of it, all the way through my CBD products, everything is top notch. I also differentiated myself from the rest of the CBD in the world because I've added C60, which is a carbon molecule that has a laundry list of benefits alongside with the CBD. So makes for a very powerful duo that nobody in the world really has. Only other company that I've noticed that I've been searching for on Google is a company out of Europe. Seems to be the only people that have thought to combine the two. So That's kind of like my selling point, or my difference maker, if you will, for the brand. So it originally started, believe it or not, I started looking into CBD for my dog. I started reading about how it helped with like joint mobility, longevity of ligaments and muscles, and the whole cannabinoid system. That goes into great detail, obviously, but basically, he tore his CCL ACL tendon, and when I went to the vet basically was telling me, hey, he's going to need surgery. At the time he was 10 years old, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I wanted to avoid surgery at all costs. Right. So after 3-4 months of research that I was already doing prior to this happening, I decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to try him on the CBD. I'm going to just jump into this idea that I've had, prior. And then I came along C60, and started doing some research on that, and started to learn about the longevity and what it has in mammals, and all the scientific evidence behind how, having lab rats live 90% longer that were variable, the variable amount of it. So I'm like, man, dude, what if I put this together? I could, this will help him live longer. This will help, actually rejuvenate the damaged cells in his ligaments and muscles and joints. And maybe I can avoid the surgery. So long story short, I decided to do a small MOQ of some CBD product. And I think I got like 100 of this flavor, 50 of this flavor, a small amount. And I just kind of started the business, and then it just took off. And then I started realizing, like, well, maybe I could start making it for people too, and I started doing it for people. And then the clothing obviously was something that, like, I like fashion, I like training, and there's certain things that I want to wear that isn't in the industry. So I'm like, I'll just make some clothing for some marketing purposes, and if it goes, it goes. So I made a couple, and then my buddies are like, man, that's dope ass shit. Like, you should sell that. So started making some of it and started selling. So 2 years later, we're here, and CBD products, I think I'm up to like 10, and clothing, you could clothe yourself from head to toe in my products. So it's been a very cool experience, a very huge learning experience, and it's really opened up my my arsenal of things that I can do. You know what I mean? So it's been cool.
What does inspire mean? What's the meaning behind that word?
So I wanted it to be, the slogan behind it is Inspire Brand, entrepreneurs driven to inspire, right? So I wanted it to be like Inspire, but with an E, like entrepreneur, like inspired. So obviously, and it wouldn't have been that unique if I called it Inspire, right? So I put that twist on it, and I did the logo, and I'm like, hey man, this looks pretty clean. I like the way it looks, and it speaks to me. It resonates well. So I liked it, and then everyone else started to like it. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe we're on to something here. And then the products speak for themselves. Obviously, I have gummies, I have oils, I have, I'm going to be coming with bath bombs and lotion. I have quite a bit of products. So what I decided to, and it's been doing really well, is I do a 30-day money back guarantee on all my products, and I've had 0 returns in the last 2 years. I'm kind of wondering if people just like don't want to hurt my feelings or something, you know what I mean? But hey, the products work. I have amazing stories of people telling me, hey, I've tried 15 different medications on my 2-year-old's eczema on her elbows and on butt, and nothing works but this. Like, dude, that's awesome. That warms my heart. You know what I mean? Or to hear somebody's story about how it gave their dog that had cancer another, year or something, or helped beat, brain cancer. And one of the people that I gave it to said that it shrank the tumors that were in his head. And, he's like, I was on other medication, but I really feel like this was a strong advocate. I was taking it 2 or 3 times a day. And just like little stories like that, man, it's like, hey man, maybe I wasn't just here just to help people lose weight. Maybe I was here for this too. You know what I mean? So it kind of gave me like more purpose, I think.
Yeah. What's kind of your ultimate business goal, Mike? Do you have, not necessarily just with inspire and the training and everything, but do you have kind of like a goal or a vision in your mind long-term, what you would like your businesses to become, or where you would like to be as a businessman?
I do. I don't know if I'm ever gonna just be satisfied and just chill out. I don't know if I'm wired up that way, but what I would like to see in, maybe the next 5 years is I would like to mesh them. You know what I mean? I would like to get a gym. All right. And I would like to have a CBD, station inside, basically, if you will, with like a bar, food area, and kind of mesh them together and make like a whole vitality clinic, offer IVs, everything like that, like a whole, idea of like whole meshed together of both the holistic health and obviously the physical health. You know what I mean?
100%. I love that, man.
If you do well, I just got to find the area and obviously, be in the right mindset. Like I'm still babying, along Inspire brand, you know what I mean? So Fitbit does its job. It kind of gets that residual, income going, stuff like that from referrals, but the Inspire still needs to be babied, a bit.
Yeah. Has social media, specifically Instagram, has that been a pretty big asset for you in terms of not only your bodybuilding business, like you yourself are a business, like, I mean, your physique, right, is a type of business that ties into the training, but just like with the Inspire brand and just all the businesses that you kind of have under your coattail, so to speak, has Instagram been a big part of that growth for those businesses?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say even more so than Facebook. I mean, just on the analytics of Shopify, I don't know if you use Shopify for any of your stores or anything like that, but it gives you that straight analytics. And it was like something like 60% of my business or something comes from Instagram. So it's crazy because, like you mentioned earlier, it's free. You know what I'm saying? It's free marketing. Like, so if you have a business and you have an idea and you're not making money on it, it's your fault. You're just being lazy. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many opportunities out there to make money, but everybody wants to have what they see. They don't want to work for it. They're like, well, I see what he's got. I want that, but I don't want to do everything he's doing to get it. You know what I mean? You got to take a couple of steps, but the opportunities are 100% there.
Very cool, man. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. I want to ask you. This is obviously something outside of bodybuilding, but it could tie into bodybuilding. Personal growth, right? You've kind of brought up, I feel like just from your story that you shared with us today, Mike, you're kind of like on a I don't know if you want to call it like a fresh start, but you're moving forward. Okay. Where is an area, or what are some areas personally that you still want to work on, or you need to work on, so that you can be the best version of yourself moving forward in bodybuilding, in business, but overall just in life?
100%. First thing that comes to mind before you even finished your question was, I want to be a master of controlling my emotions. I want to be a monk, if you will, because I think a calm mind and a clear mind is the most efficient mind. So I think if I can figure out how to master that, or at least get better at that and have progression in that, that's going to be the forefront for me to reach next levels of success. That's really what I feel.
Cool, man. What do you feel like bodybuilding has given you in your life?
Definitely has given me purpose. It's definitely shown me an open paths and opportunities. I tell people all the time, bodybuilding for me is a template that I use to fulfill other things like Inspire brand, like Fitbit Fitness. It gives me validity to the people I'm speaking to understand, well, hey, he looks the way he does, and he speaks the way he does, he walks the way he does. Maybe he's legit, maybe he knows what he's doing. So it just adds to your validity of what you have to say. It adds to obviously the genre and the demographic of people that you're able to speak to. So if you use bodybuilding in the right way and the platforms that you can use, like social medias and stuff like that, it can be a huge thing for other business opportunities and things like that.
Awesome, man. Last question. If you could give your 12-year-old self just a nugget of wisdom or a nugget of advice, what would that wisdom or advice be?
Start taking baseball more serious so I could be a pro baseball player being interviewed right now instead of a bodybuilder. That'd be one. The other one would have been like, give up your bike. It's not that important. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably pretty much it. Just, stay focused on stay focused on things that matter, worry about what you can control. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many variables in the world. If you stress yourselves out on everything that you can't control, you're going to be a mess. So that's probably what I'd say. And I think I'd still say the same thing to my 34-year-old self right now. You know what I mean?
For sure, dude. I love it, man. I was really looking forward to our conversation, and it definitely didn't disappoint, Mike. I appreciate you. We got into some bodybuilding stuff, but that's why I really enjoy this podcast, because it's more than bodybuilding. It's taking a look behind the muscle, right? Because we all have a story. There's a lot more than just the bodybuilding and the muscles and the tattoos that we have, right? We all have a story. We all have something to share with the world. So thank you for coming on. If you have any final words you'd like to leave with us at this time, I'd love to have you share that with all of us, Mike. And then where can people connect with you? Where can people find everything that you have going on in terms of brands and just your offerings?
Yeah, man, I don't got too much else to say. I think we covered a lot. I was very happy and looking forward to it as well to come on. I love the concept behind the muscle. I think it's absolutely awesome. I was thinking about doing something not very similar, but something similar with Pitbull mentality, not so much bodybuilding, just talking about mindset, business opportunities, entrepreneurial chat up, stuff like that. But I love the podcast. I love being part of it. So thank you very much. If anyone wants to reach out to me, just talk shop, either bodybuilding or entrepreneurial stuff, you can reach me at Swollen Pitbull on Instagram. Also, Inspired Brands Instagram is open as well. Pit Fitness is Instagram. And then I also have 2 emails that I have on my phone that I'm looking at constantly. It's mike@fitpitfitness.com and then support@inspiredbrand.com. I appreciate you guys tuning in and appreciate you for having me, man.
You're very welcome, Mike. And I think you should take that idea you just mentioned about the business talk and run with it, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel. I think you definitely have a lot of wisdom within bodybuilding, within life, within business to share with the world, man. So my suggestion is take that, run with it, man. But again, thank you so much for coming on. All right, Mike.
Appreciate it, man. Maybe I'll have you on my podcast next time.
Sure. I'd love it, dude. I'd definitely love it. Listeners, thank you so much. If you're on YouTube watching, thank you so much once again for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast. If it wasn't for you guys, the podcast wouldn't exist. The YouTube is growing like crazy. The Behind the Muscle podcast Instagram is growing like crazy. And I just want to once again say thank you to all of you listeners, all of you subscribers on YouTube. If you're listening to this on another podcast platform, thank you very much. Your listening ears, your viewing eyes are always greatly appreciated. 2 favors I would ask of all of you guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Why is that important? Because I release all of these episodes first on YouTube, and then I shoot it out to all the other podcast platforms. Second favor I'd ask of all of you, take this episode, you guys. We heard a lot of wisdom from Mike, not only bodybuilding wisdom, but life wisdom and also business wisdom. Take this episode, share it on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you tag Mike. Make sure you tag Behind the Muscle so that we know specifically you listened to this episode and you found value in it. Also, when you guys share episodes of Behind the Muscle podcast on your social media platforms, that gives the opportunity of other people to find the podcast. People are going to listen and people are going to be positively impacted. That's ultimately my goal with the podcast, is that people's stories are shared, people listen, people are positively impacted. So thank you so much for sharing this episode. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.